The cover-up has begun. As I reported to you all the other night, there were a ton of UFO sightings over California. An entire neighborhood who stays connected on this little app where they talk about things going on in the neighborhood. A whole entire neighborhood reported seeing one, if not more, of these UFOs. Some people claimed they saw up to 6. So there were dozens of reports coming in. The local media covered this story. Even some mainstream media outlets picked up this story. We don't know what was going on, but we know for a fact that dozens, if not more, people saw these UFOs over Palmdale, California. Now, even though all of these people saw the UFOs, even though some of them said they recorded video, the internet was flooded with a bunch of fake footage. The internet was flooded with all types of videos, people claiming that this is a video from the California UFO sighting, or this is a video of all the UFOs flying in the sky over Palmdale, California. The only problem is 99% of those videos were fake. I already looked into it. I can debunk most of the videos. Most of the videos are actually from a Pokemon drone show in Hawaii. I kid you not. Sounds crazy, but that's the reality of the situation. Now, as far as I can tell, a woman who lived in the neighborhood did post this video. In this video, you can see a glowing orb zigzagging through the sky. I believe this may be real footage. But at this point, the story has evolved into something different. Because what we're witnessing right now, I believe, is a cover-up. You see, back in the day when they wanted to cover up things, they literally covered things up. They made sure the story didn't get out there. In the modern day, where we're all connected on the internet, everyone can post and say whatever they want to say across various social media platforms. Everyone has a camera, everyone has a camcorder basically attached to their hand at all times. So they can't cover up stories in the way they once did. So the way they cover things up now is when you have like a credible UFO sighting, like what happened in California, you see they'll cover things up by flooding the internet. They'll have bots, they'll have paid off social media influencers that they will use to flood the internet with fake videos, misinformation, disinformation, and before you know it, the waters get so muddied that you don't even want to dive in no more. You don't know what to believe and you don't even care anymore. And that's what they bank on. That's how they cover up these stories now. So right now, we're witnessing this crazy influx of all of these fake videos. I mean, even big UFO accounts that you think would be interested in telling the truth, they're knowingly sharing these fake videos, probably because they're paid off to do so, or maybe they're just shills for the you-know-who, the government. But I'm looking at this like, what is really going on? Because in many ways, this is kind of like a form of psychological warfare. I mean, not to extreme levels, but in many ways, this is like the government waging psychological warfare on its own people. Now, if you think that sounds crazy, then obviously you don't know much about the government. You think they wouldn't wage psychological warfare? You don't think they would use UFOs to do so? Well, obviously you don't know about a secret little CIA operation that took place in the 60s. Right in the middle of all of the drama that was going on between the US and Russia, there was a secret operation on the border of Russia, a secret operation ran by the CIA, where they were faking UFOs in order to wage psychological warfare on the Russian army. So you would have people reading the radars, and these unidentified flying objects would keep popping up on their radar. And they didn't know what was going on. They had no idea that it was the CIA putting out these fake UFOs on their radar to trick them, to scare them. And it just so happens that a guy by the name of JFK, you guys know who JFK is, right? Well, JFK actually found out about this secret operation. And JFK not only wanted to put an end to this operation, he wanted the CIA to come clean about the operation to Russia. He wanted the CIA to reveal to Russia that they had been doing this all along. And the reason he was like this, the reason he felt this way, is because JFK knew how dangerous this was. We were on the verge of nuclear war with Russia, and here's the CIA on the border of Russia playing games that could literally start nuclear war. But they didn't care. Some would argue, some think, some speculate that that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to get Russia to hit that button to initiate a nuclear exchange. But at the end of the day, regardless of what their motive was, it was very dangerous because we were in a time where people's fingers were on the button ready. Kids in school were being given nuclear drills and stuff like that. I wasn't alive back then. Maybe some of you all were, but I'm not sure how many of you all were aware that the CIA has been using UFOs to wage psychological warfare on people for decades now. And it just so happens that JFK was one of the first people to actually realize that the CIA was secretly doing this. And then, well, I guess we all know what happened to JFK, right? But anyways, I want to go ahead and roll this news clip really quickly, and then afterwards, I'll be right back with more thoughts.
The assassination of John F. Kennedy has been the subject of endless debate and analysis. The latest episode of News Nation's Reality Check podcast dives into the dark world of Cold War espionage to find out what JFK may have known about UFOs, covert CIA operations, and if there could be connections to Kennedy's assassination.
Do you believe that there may in fact be a connection between JFK's decision to demand openness from the CIA and openness between the CIA and the Soviets on UAPs? Do you believe there may be a connection between that presidential order and the subsequent murder of John F. Kennedy?
Absolutely. Yep.
Absolutely. Here with us now is News Nation special correspondent and Reality Check host Ross Coulthart, joining us from Australia. Ross, thanks for joining us. I've been very excited to talk to you.
It's a real pleasure to speak to you, and it's very much UFO week this week. I'm able to talk about Lou Elizondo also at the end of this week, appearing on News Nation. So we're going to have a very busy week with studying the subject of UFOs.
Very exciting. And everyone wants to know more about this phenomenon. Let's start with the Majestic 12 files. What are they, and why are ufologists now zeroing in on them? I should call them ufologists.
Okay, so the Majestic 12 files are a long disputed group of documents that were supposedly leaked from within the defence and intelligence agencies about 30 plus years ago. Their provenance, their authenticity has long been disputed. But what's really interesting, and the chap I was interviewing there, who's an Australian former intelligence officer, a guy called Jeff Cruikshank, he's done some phenomenal work revealing a little-known piece of history from the JFK era. How 63 years ago, JFK was so concerned that UFOs were causing the Soviets to fear that the Americans might be launching an attack, that he ordered the CIA to be more open with the Russians, with the Soviet Union, about what we were doing on their border, because it turned out there was a secret CIA program where we were actually spoofing UFOs. We were pretending that there were UFOs by putting up false signals on Russian radar. And needless to say, JFK was very, very concerned about this because it was a huge threat to deconflicting, to stopping the possibility that the Soviets might think that we were attacking. And the interesting thing is there are documents in the Majestic 12 documents which appear to refer to this secret operation. And even though they've been said to be false, it's really interesting because the secret operation was only revealed to exist 2 years ago, and yet these MJ12 documents were found and first discovered to the public attention about 30 years ago. So it really does raise the possibility that what have long been disputed to be fake documents are in fact potentially true, and that they reveal a hidden history about JFK's concern about UFOs.
This is so fascinating. So, Ross, as we're listening to this podcast, as we're learning more, what are the questions we should keep in mind as we listen and watch the story unfold?
Okay, well, I think a lot of people don't realize that it's actually written into treaties. There's a treaty that we've signed with the Russians, which basically assures them that we will consult on UAPs, on UFOs. This is such a big issue between the United States and the Soviet Union in its day, and now Russia, that in order to protect those countries from accidentally launching a nuclear strike at each other, they are consulting. They've agreed to consult with each other in a treaty on UFOs. And so we should be skeptical about documents that appear to suggest some kind of broader conspiracy, but this particular intelligence official, now retired, suggests that we should be taking seriously these documents that suggest that there's been a very hidden history where the president, JFK, was so concerned that we were doing an illegal, essentially things that weren't even authorized by Congress. We were running an operation which was making the Soviets think that we were launching an attack, making them look like UFOs. And JFK only found out about it 63 years ago in Vienna because of a question from Premier Nikita Khrushchev. So it's important now in these very dangerous times that we look at the fact that, here we are, we're so much closer to the potential for nuclear Armageddon than ever before in our history. Heaven forbid. And I think questions need to be asked of our president. What on earth is going on? What are we doing to protect against this potential risk?
Ross.
There's been arguments and debates over what JFK knew for years. Because we all know that he knew something. There's different theories. There's different facts out there, about knowledge that JFK had, knowledge that maybe, because he had this knowledge, maybe that's the reason why they took him out. But I think one of the main reasons they took JFK out was not necessarily because of what he knew, although I'm sure that played a factor. I think it was because JFK was universally loved. In America, at least as long as I've been alive, we've never had a president that everyone in America loves. Now, I'm not saying every person in America necessarily loved JFK, but I don't think America was as divided back then. I think for the most part, people liked Kennedy. And that's what the powers that be, they don't want that. The people who are actually running the show, they do not want the president or any world leader to be universally loved. Okay? They want them to be divisive. They want us split down the middle because their number one fear is all of us coming together. Because when we all come together, they lose power. Which is why you see things going the way they are right now. The government, the powers that be, these politicians, they are fueling the racial divide, the political divide, on purpose, because we were coming together in the 90s and early 2000s. So they purposely started taking steps backwards because they did not like the unity that they were seeing between races, between different groups of people. But as far as this UFO situation goes in California, I would really like to know what this is. And I'll tell you this. The fact that there has been such an effort put forth to spread misinformation when it comes to this story, it lets me know that this is something that should be taken seriously. Because if this was a big nothing burger, you wouldn't see all of these bots online and all of these accounts purposely spreading fake videos. You wouldn't see such a misinformation campaign put forward. So I believe the reason why we're seeing that is because this is a serious situation. It's one of the biggest UFO sightings in recent history as far as, how many people all reported seeing this thing. Now, I'm not telling you it's aliens. I'm not trying to tell you that at all. I believe in aliens, but there's air bases nearby. For all we know, the government is working on something, or this could all be part of a psychological, like warfare campaign. And I know that sounds crazy, but as I told you all, it's happened before. And if it's happened before, they'll do it again. You have to remember, we live in a day and age where they just created the Space Force. They need funding for the Space Force. And then, of course, the government is openly talking about UFOs now all of a sudden. Who knows what these people have up their sleeve? We have to pay attention. And the reason why people like me always look at these stories and I always think there's something more to it is because when you look into things, there's usually more to the story. Just like what was happening, on the Russian border back in the 60s. Okay, folks, I know a lot of people, a lot of you all probably didn't even know about that story. But things like that have happened throughout history is the reason why people like me are so skeptical about everything that's going on in today's world. But for now, I want you all to let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.